In 1979, a momentous event occurred in Iran, the outbreak of the Islamic Revolution. King Mohammad Reza Pahlavi was overthrown, and under the leadership of Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini, Iran became the Islamic Republic of Iran. The majority of Iran's population are Shia Muslims, while most of its neighboring Arab countries, such as Iraq, Kuwait, and Saudi Arabia, are predominantly Sunni Muslims. Iran's Islamic Revolution frightened these neighboring Arab states. They jointly decided to pressure Iran. In this context, Iraqi President Saddam Hussein, with support from other Arab countries, launched a war against Iran. However, the war dragged on for 8 years and yielded no decisive outcome. Finally, with UN intervention, both sides reached a ceasefire agreement in 1988. Iraq had borrowed nearly $40 billion, mainly from Kuwait and Saudi Arabia, during the long Iran-Iraq War. These countries initially supported Saddam Hussein to counter Iran's growing influence, but after the war ended, they began pressing Iraq to repay the loans. Saddam, facing economic crisis and humiliation, reacted with hostility, especially toward Kuwait. Eventually, he invaded the small Gulf nation. In response, 35 countries, led by the United States, united to drive Saddam out. This marked the beginning of his decline. But who was Saddam Hussein? Why did his former allies turn against him? And how did Iraq collapse under his rule? Saddam was born on April 28, 1937, in Al-Awajah, near Tikrit. His father died before he was born, and his brother died when Saddam was 12. His mother, Suban Tulfa al-Musalat, overwhelmed with grief and poverty, once attempted suicide and abortion, both unsuccessfully. Unable to raise him, she sent Saddam to live with her brother, Khairallah Tulfa, a retired army officer and nationalist. Khairallah's influence shaped Saddam's early ideas, but after Khairallah was jailed for plotting against the monarchy, Saddam returned to his mother. She had remarried, and Saddam's stepfather, Ibrahim al-Hassan, was harsh and abusive. These early experiences made Saddam tough, angry, and rebellious. At 10, he rejoined his uncle after his release and moved back to Tikrit. There, he attended a nationalist high school and became more politically active. By 1957, Saddam had joined the Ba'ath Party, a movement that would launch his rise to power and later lead Iraq into war and ruin. At the age of 20, Saddam Hussein was expelled from the Faculty of Law at the University of Baghdad, not for poor performance, but because of his deepening ties with the Arab Socialist Ba'ath Party. This party, dedicated to Arab unity, socialism, and anti-imperialism, was growing rapidly in influence. Even after his expulsion, Saddam doubled down on his political activism, becoming a key organizer within the movement. During this period, he developed close ties with senior Ba'ath leaders. Ironically, many of these figures, such as Fuad al-Rikabi, one of the party's earliest leaders, would later become his victims. As Saddam rose in power, he turned on many of his former allies, imprisoning or executing them under charges of treason and conspiracy. In 1958, he married his cousin, Sajida Kerala Tulfa, the daughter of his influential uncle, Khairallah. This marriage not only brought him 5 children, but also solidified his connection to powerful tribal and military networks in his hometown of Tikrit. The late 1950s were a time of revolutionary fervor across the Middle East. Young Iraqis, inspired by Egypt's President Gamal Abdel Nasser, who had nationalized the Suez Canal and challenged colonial powers, began demanding radical change. Many believed in Nasser's vision of Arab unity and admired his anti-Western stance. Saddam, like many Baathists, looked up to Nasser as a model of leadership. The Ba'ath Party supported Nasser's United Arab Republic, formed between Egypt and Syria. However, Iraq's new Prime Minister, Abdul Karim Qasim, who came to power in a 1958 coup, refused to align Iraq with Nasser's vision. Though initially hailed as a hero, Qasim shifted toward the communist bloc and began suppressing nationalist groups, including the Baathists. This move deeply angered the Baath Party. In response, they plotted his assassination. Though he had no military background, Saddam offered to lead the mission himself. On October 7, 1959, his team ambushed Qasim's motorcade in Baghdad. Qasim was wounded but survived, while Saddam was shot in the leg during the operation. Despite the failure, Saddam managed to escape with help from the Baathist underground. He fled to Syria and then to Egypt, where he was welcomed by Nasser's regime and resumed law studies at Cairo University in 1962. It was a time of political growth and learning for Saddam. Meanwhile, back in Iraq, political turmoil continued. In 1963, the Baath Party and military allies overthrew Qasim in the Ramadan Revolution. Saddam returned to Iraq shortly afterward, re-enrolling in law school. But his focus had shifted permanently to politics. In 1964, he was arrested again for participating in a conspiracy against the regime. While in prison, Saddam immersed himself in studying power, especially the tactics of Stalin and Hitler. He learned how to build control through fear, surveillance, and ruthless efficiency. In 1966, after escaping from prison, he rejoined the Baath Party and was appointed Deputy Regional Secretary. Saddam wasted no time in building an internal security apparatus, staffed largely by loyalists from Tikrit. Through this network, he began silencing opponents, eliminating rivals, and preparing for the day when he would become Iraq's undisputed ruler. During this process, he used many cruel torture methods, forcing cigarettes under victims' nails, hanging them upside down, beating them. Many opponents died under torture. In July 1968, Saddam participated in a bloodless coup, overthrowing Abdul Salam Arif. Ahmed Hassan al-Bakr assumed power. After al-Bakr became president of Iraq, he appointed Saddam as deputy secretary of the Baath Party and vice president. From the 1960s into the 1970s, Saddam was widely known in Iraq as a successful leader. During this period, he worked to address domestic issues and improve the Baath Party's reputation. But Iraq's domestic divisions were severe: Shiites versus Sunnis, Arabs versus Kurds, nomads versus urban merchants. Conflicts were frequent. To stabilize the situation, Saddam adopted a series of hardline measures, while also striving to strengthen national power. On June 1, 1972, he began developing Iraq's oil industry. In 1973, the oil crisis erupted, causing international oil price surges. Iraq benefited from this and gradually rose to become a regional power. Saddam implemented many policies to promote national development, providing free education and building infrastructure. He also fully supported Iraqi soldiers and their families. Additionally, he focused on agriculture and healthcare. These sectors saw great improvement. Thanks to Iraq's continuous development, UNESCO even awarded Saddam an honor. However, from the 1970s to 1980, although oil revenues fueled Iraq's growth and bolstered public trust, the people remained unaware that Saddam was channeling most of the oil income into weapons and military buildup. In practice, he carried out multiple acts of genocide. This is why people often compare him to Hitler. On January 27, 1969, Iraqi authorities hanged 14 Iraqis on charges of espionage, including 9 Jews, 3 Muslims, and 2 Christians. He did this to win popular support, and indeed he secured it. But compared to his actions against the Kurds, frequently cited when comparing him with Hitler, this atrocity was mild. From 1986 to 1989, in northern Iraq, Saddam launched a genocidal campaign against the Kurds, resulting in about 182,000 Kurds killed or missing and nearly 300,000 forcibly displaced to Iran. During the Iran-Iraq War, when the Kurdistan Democratic Party allied with Iran, Saddam plotted reprisals that killed about 5,000 people, many under the age of 10. But Saddam felt no remorse for the lives lost. Despite his ruthless methods, his developmental projects, such as new roads, schools, and infrastructure, boosted his popularity. Public support for him surged, even surpassing that of then-President Ahmed Hassan al-Bakr. Feeling increasingly sidelined, al-Bakr tried to contain Saddam with help from Syria. But Saddam, always cunning, outmaneuvered him politically. On July 16, 1979, al-Bakr was forced to resign, and Saddam Hussein officially became the president of Iraq. From that moment, Saddam held absolute control. Less than a week into his rule, he convened a dramatic Ba'ath Party meeting. There, in front of hundreds, he publicly announced that a conspiracy had been uncovered. Of the 250 party members present, 68 were expelled on the spot. Then, shockingly, 22 of them were executed, some immediately. This event sent a chilling message to the nation. Saddam would tolerate no dissent. By August 1979, Saddam had effectively eliminated all opposition. His rule was based not on trust, but on fear. Former allies now became executioners, forced to participate in the purge to prove their loyalty. To ensure his personal security, Saddam established one of the world's most elaborate protection systems. Every general or official who met him was subjected to full-body searches, sometimes even made to remove clothing before being allowed near him. Paranoia ruled his life. Fearing assassination, especially poisoning, he made his chef's son taste every meal before he ate. He constructed dozens of luxurious palaces across the country and used several body doubles to confuse enemies. These doubles lived under strict security, but were also pampered, creating uncertainty over who the real Saddam was at any public appearance. Meanwhile, tensions in the Gulf region were escalating. In 1979, the Islamic Revolution erupted in Iran, overthrowing the U.S.-backed Shah after 25 years in power. In his place, Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini established the Islamic Republic of Iran, a theocratic state rooted in Shia Islam. This sudden shift shook the Sunni-led Arab world. Nations like Iraq, Saudi Arabia, and Kuwait feared that Khomeini's revolution might inspire their own Shiite populations to rise up, especially since Iraq had a significant Shia majority under Sunni rule. Fearing internal rebellion and regional instability, Kuwait and Saudi Arabia encouraged Saddam to confront Iran. Saddam, meanwhile, saw a strategic opportunity. He hoped to reclaim territory lost in the 1975 Algiers Agreement and believed Iran, still reeling from revolution and chaos, was too weak to resist. With full financial backing from Saudi Arabia and Kuwait, Saddam launched a surprise military offensive against Iran. Before the war began, Saddam ordered the execution of several high-ranking Shia officials in Iraq, suspecting they could become loyal to Khomeini. He was convinced Iraq's army, then the fourth largest in the world, would crush Iran in a matter of weeks. But events unfolded differently. Under Khomeini's call to defend the revolution, the Iranian people mobilized en masse. Young men volunteered by the thousands, forming militias and joining the front lines. What Saddam expected to be a quick, victorious campaign turned into an 8-year war of attrition. Despite massive support from Western powers like the United States, which supplied arms and intelligence, and financial aid from Gulf countries, Iraq failed to capture significant Iranian territory. The human and economic toll was staggering. Saddam's war machine drained the national treasury, and Iraq began accumulating enormous debts. On March 16, 1988, in a horrifying escalation, Saddam ordered a chemical weapons attack on Kurdish civilians in Halabja. a town in northern Iraq suspected of harboring Iranian sympathizers. Around 10,000 people died, and thousands more were left permanently scarred. When the UN investigated, Saddam claimed the victims were Iranian spies, a statement that only intensified international condemnation. The war finally ended on August 20, 1988, with a UN-brokered ceasefire. No side claimed victory. Iran remained defiant, and Iraq was left economically crippled. Civilians suffered immensely, facing food shortages, broken healthcare systems, and widespread homelessness. Entire cities had been bombed. The once wealthy nation was now drowning in debt.